Hello, Sema. Hi, everyone. This is Joe Firestone for Real Progressives. And my guest for tonight is Sema Hernandez, running for the Senate in Texas. Okay, the U.S. Senate, a primary opponent. It's a progressive program, and she has no idea why she can't be heard at this point, I think. Can you hear me, Sema? Can you hear me, Sema? Something's wrong with his broadcast. Okay. Okay, we seem to have a technical problem, everybody. I have no idea why we have a technical problem, okay, at this point. We should be sharing the screen. Okay, let's see. Can you hear me, Sema? No, I don't think Sema can hear me. Okay, which makes a little problem for the interview that we're supposed to be having right now. So let's see what we can do. Okay, Sema. Okay, if you can somehow hear me now, and I'm not aware of your hearing me, if you sign out of the broadcast and then sign back in, that may work. We are live, right? Yes, we are. I don't know why you can't hear me. Please sign out and then sign back in. Okay. Honey, can you hear me? Okay. Can you try to speak, Sema? Okay, can you see me? Okay, everyone, we have a technical problem. I've asked Sema to sign out and come back in using the link. Hopefully, when she does, we'll be able to manage this. Hello, Sema?
Don't know what that.
Hello, Sema? Can you hear me now?
So.
Hi, Sema, can you hear me? Oh, I seem to be hearing some sounds from your side now. Okay, but your picture, it's frozen.
Cracker Jacks.
Oh, Cracker Jacks? Really?
Send it to my email. Can you do?
Okay. Okay, your picture's on the screen.
It's my Google.
It seems to be frozen.
Cracker Jacks.
Why? Okay. Well, we seem to be improving. The first time around, I wasn't able to hear you at all. Now I'm able to hear you say Google. I think I caught Google. And then also Cracker Jacks at one point. Okay. Hopefully, Sema will try to come in again. Okay, and join us. If not, I think I'm going to pinch hit and go through her platform for you. It's a good platform. It'll be a shame if you miss it. I see we already have 62 comments. I definitely heard 2 Cracker Jacks. Yeah, I definitely heard 2 Cracker Jacks also, but I noticed the picture was frozen. Hopefully, she's going to try and sign in again. Okay, if not, since we're here already, I'm going to start to outline her platform for you. It's a very good platform. Sema, if you're out there, please try again. Maybe the third time will be the charm. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to pinch hit. Okay, Sema has her primary on March 6th. So time is short. And that's why I wanted her to be a guest here tonight, because I thought we could have a very interesting conversation about her platform. Anyway, I'll be watching for her to sign in again. And meanwhile, I'm going to talk about her platform. First item of her platform is single payer healthcare for all. And she supports HR 676, which everybody around here knows about. That's John Conyers' single payer bill that he introduced into the Congress. Okay, and she supports it because health care is a human right. Okay, and I bet that almost everyone watching this program at this point in the on the Real Progressives page believes health care is a human right. You might not all support HR 676, for various reasons, but I think there's a very high degree of consensus here that healthcare is a human right. So Sema points out we have a profit-driven healthcare industry that leaves millions uninsured, and she believes that a single-payer system will take the profits out of healthcare and will save actually many lives. Okay, and I agree with her. I believe that's true too. I hope that in her campaign, she mentions the fatalities issue, because there are still some 30,000 lives each year lost due to lack of insurance, and that assumes that Obamacare stays in place. If Obamacare does not stay in place, then by some projections, okay, that I've made, we'd be quickly looking at 50 to 55,000 fatalities per year, which is where we were early in 2009 before our efforts to reform healthcare started. Okay. From my point of view, the biggest issue in healthcare is the fatalities due to lack of insurance. Also, Jeffrey Ginter frequently mentions the number of deaths due to medical errors in our healthcare system, and he places that figure at roughly 200,000 a year. That's a huge issue also. The other huge issues are the bankruptcies and the divorces and the mortgage foreclosures, all attached to not having a Medicare for all system. There are some people who now favor a Medicare for all system, but they want to take 3 years to implement that Medicare for all system. They're generally in favor of a system with deductibles and no copays. And Sema has come in again, and she's smiling now, and I'm putting her into the broadcast, and I'll let her represent her own platform.
It's a big platform. How are you?
I'm fine, Sema. How are you? It's really good to see you. Hey, technical problems are solved. I'm so glad. And our audience is too. We suddenly have a boost to some 47 people now. And
Yay.
We're doing very well. Okay, we're doing fine. Okay, so it's really wonderful to see you. I'd seen you before in your interview with Joy Mann.
Yes.
Okay, and my wife said at that time, you have to have her on too. And
okay.
I've been trying to find a gap in the schedule. Okay, I wasn't able to find the gap, so I decided to schedule an extra broadcast for tonight, so I could have this conversation with you before your primary, okay, on March 6th.
Well, early voting started today.
Yes, I know it did.
Yes, I know. I haven't had the chance to go out and vote myself, so I have to do it first thing tomorrow morning. Is vote in the morning.
Yes.
That's very difficult to do on the schedule that I have, but it's going to get done. I'm going to vote, and I'm going to take people with me who need a lift to go and vote, who need a ride, who don't have anyone else to take them. I will take them.
That is certainly the way to do it. Take as many people as you can, okay, and take as many trips as you can.
Yes.
Okay, so I wanted to get to your platform, and I started talking about single-payer healthcare for all. I'm a big supporter, okay, of that. And so are most of the people here who are watching you tonight, okay, and a lot of us, I know, favor very much H.R. 676. Not for how it pays for Medicare for all, because we're not so heavy on that point. We're not sure that it has to be paid for with any taxes. But we're very much in favor of all the benefits in that bill, okay, and of how it treats co-pays and also deductibles. So that is very popular around here. Now that's a major differentiating factor of yourself from Beto O'Rourke, correct? Because he is not for Medicare for all, is
Yeah,
he?
he's not. Unfortunately, he's not. And he's campaigning on Medicare for all, that healthcare is a human right. However, when it comes right down to it, he does not support HR 676 as it is. However, if he were in the Senate, he would support it, but he's in a position to support it now in his current office that he's holding, but he does not.
Which suggests that if he wins office again, he still might not support it.
Correct.
Right.
Correct, because in his words, or the words of his campaign, it would lead to nonprofit health care. And that's why he won't support it.
It would lead to nonprofit health care. Well, it certainly would lead to nonprofit health insurance. But
Right.
How does he come to the conclusion that it would lead to nonprofit health care?
Well,
Does he
because he's
explain
protecting the
this?
health.
I'm sorry,
What's
say
that?
that again.
I'm saying because he supports the health insurance industry getting their pay.
Oh, so he wants the health insurance industry to stay in business.
Yes.
But how can they stay in business under a Medicare for all plan with no copays and also no deductibles?
But that's why he won't sign it, is because he wants to keep the profit margins there for his donors.
So he wants to keep the murderers by spreadsheet in business. Is that right?
That is what the conclusion is whenever he says what he says about HR 676.
Okay, so do people pick up on this? Okay, in other words,
No,
okay, so they don't really
they
pick up on
unfortunately do
this.
not.
They are not aware that he's basically dancing around the Hillary Clinton, uh, her position on healthcare reform. Um, is that right?
The way I've heard him explain it at different town halls, whenever people ask him, why don't you support HR 676? He says because he wants you to pick your own doctor and for your doctor to get paid for the services that you get. If we have Medicare for all, then you can't see your doctor or get the health care that you want where you're comfortable getting it. So we want you to be covered. That's how he explains it. So people will shy away from asking any more questions, saying, well, that's a good reason. But the problem is that he's not explaining exactly what HR 676 does. It gives a for
He
system
is
of
not
2 years to
explaining it, okay,
transition.
because under that bill, it would be possible to see most any doctor in the United States, including your own doctor. There would only be
Correct.
very few doctors who could afford not to take Medicare for all.
Correct.
They would basically have to be concierge doctors. Okay, but any
Yes.
ordinary doctor would certainly accept a Medicare for all program. Uh, okay,
And then understand is ill.
okay. When people talk about this with him, do they emphasize the fatalities issue, or the
No,
mortgage
they don't.
foreclosures, or the divorces, or the bankruptcies that are due to lack of insurance?
No, they do not. That's something that I touch on because I've seen it firsthand, and I have been a patient who had to sacrifice multiple things just to get coverage or just to get a medication for me or my children. I have been in that boat. That's something that I don't think that even Ted Cruz himself can relate to living in a situation like that, like most of us have.
So they have no idea how many fatalities per year still occur due to lack of insurance. In other words, they have no idea that
Correct.
figure is somewhere between 30 and 35,000 Americans per year, or 10 times the amount that were killed in the 9/11 bombings. Is that right?
That Beto headquarters know these numbers, but they're not ones to because if they signed on to this bill long ago when it was introduced back in 2003 by John Conyers in the House.
Okay, but they could be brought up in a debate, right?
What in a debate tomorrow, but with Beto O'Rourke, but he will not be there at the debate because he has on the issues that matter most to us. So we'll be having the primary that did bother to show up and confirm. His name is Edward Kimbrough, and I mention his name because I feel that it's proper for me to do it, because the more informed you are as a voter, the better choices you can make, and you can go out there and research the candidates. Because I obviously am not afraid of competition, which is why I mentioned Beto O'Rourke and Edward Kimbrough.
Okay. Okay, very good. Okay, I take it also that that Beto is also not aware of how much money could be saved by going to Medicare for All. He is not aware that there is a possibility that we could end up cutting our costs by one half through Medicare for All as a nation. Okay? In other words, we spend roughly 17.5% of our GDP, okay, for medical costs right now. And there are estimates out there that say that there's a potential for us to cut that down to 9% perhaps, or 10%, okay, or something like that anyway, so that we might cut down the number from $3.4 trillion a year to approximately $1.8 trillion a year.
Significant cut, and that would save not just a lot of taxpayer dollars, but it would save a lot of people heartache, death, turmoil, in economic instability in their own financial situation. This lift the burden off of many people's shoulders if we had a single payer healthcare system. As it is right now, there's many people working multiple jobs and still not able to cover the bare necessities that they need, let alone health. So to keep saying we need a healthcare system that is going to continue to allow the insurance companies to profit is frankly disingenuous, saying that healthcare is a human right. Then you need to sign on to that bill. If you don't believe it will pass, sign it anyway as a token of good faith that the issues. Unfortunately, he fails in that, in the same way that he fails on a budget. He went ahead and gave Trump an additional $80 billion, which now pushes it up to $700 billion into the military budget. Thing
Yes,
that I do not agree with. We could have used that for something else. Definitely could have used it for college for all, which shortly after he voted to approve that vote for the military spending, he turned around and was trying to push aid to force us to go into some sort of service for the country for about a year.
Okay, could you turn down your speakers just a little bit, because we're getting some feedback. Okay, so if you could turn down your speakers just a trifle, we might be able to get rid of it.
Okay.
Okay.
Trying that now.
Okay, good. Sounds better. Okay, so another question.
Okay.
Are your voters aware of the fact that there's no deficit spending in the healthcare area. So since there is none, the whole $3.4 trillion is coming out of their pockets. But that is to say, some of it will go to pay taxes, but some of it goes to insurance premiums. Some of it goes to copays and also deductibles. Okay, and if you don't have insurance, then it comes out of your pocket there. So every dollar of that $3.4 trillion in one way or another is paid for by the voters. Okay, do people realize that? Okay, so do they realize that if they had a Medicare for All bill and it did bring costs down to $1.8 trillion, that they'd be saving $1.7 trillion a year out of their collective pockets, and that
they don't know
that over 10 years, that amounts to saving $17 trillion out of their pockets. No, they don't know that, do they?
No, they don't know that. No, they don't. They think that universal health care is a far-fetched idea. But the more that they're exposed to the idea of it and how to pay for it and how it would not just save them money in the long run, it would also end up saving their lives with preventative health care, that's an amazing idea, because there's many people that haven't gone to the doctor for about 17 years, 12 years, 6 years. Hell, I haven't gone to the doctor and had a full checkup in about 6 years. A full checkup.
Sure.
In 6 years, other than my prenatal health care with my last child. He's now 5. That's been a while.
Yeah, the reason why I have checkups is because Medicare. I mean, it's Medicare. If I didn't have Medicare, I probably wouldn't have checkups. Except I probably would, because I'm getting old and I'm afraid. Okay. But certainly, if I were your age, I wouldn't have checkups.
No, well, I need checkups because I need to make sure that I'm healthy and that my husband is healthy, so we can provide for our children. And
yes,
that's why it's important to have
everybody needs checkups. Everybody needs checkups.
Yes, because if we're healthy, we're a more productive society. We're more productive as people. We're less likely to get sick. We're less likely to spread germs and diseases to other people, whether it, in forms of the flu that just happened this last season. All of us were hanging on to dear baby and I that passed away because they didn't have the funds to get the Tamiflu, to get the medication, to get seen by a doctor in time. That's devastating. That just happened. It's still happening right now, but more recently, about a week or two ago, we've had people here that have been exposed to the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey. Their health has already been compromised, and then to get the flu, it just even. So why not get this Medicare for All already passed? Why couldn't this have gotten done in the past? Why is it now?
Why couldn't it have gotten done in 2009? As soon as Obama came in, when there were really big majorities for the Democrats in both the House and the Senate. Okay, and also, please don't speak to us about the filibuster back then. Because of course he could have eliminated the filibuster back then with the nuclear option, or if not that, he could have had a reconciliation bill to pass it. Either way, it could have been passed if he'd wanted it. But the truth is, he didn't want it. He wanted to save the health insurance companies like Beto. Exactly like Beto.
Now we're in 2018, and we need to vote those people out and vote people that are not part of the problem into Congress. Exactly. Now, the way I see it, and my perspective is, Mr. O'Rourke is a sitting congressman in District 16. He knows the statistics say that overwhelmingly people approve of universal healthcare, single-payer healthcare system, but he's still reluctant to sign it because there are donors that he has that are tied into investments in Wall Street that will eventually get really upset if they lose any profit. What we need is some part of the problem, not in a way that it's not hindering our successes and our healthcare to get out of office. Now, if I for some reason lose and he wins in the primary, you're only promoting him, giving him a promotion. Now, it's been my perspective and my experience that if someone is not doing their job that they are elected to do, you don't give them a promotion.
Yeah, you give them the boot.
So, yes, you give them the boot, just like we're trying to do with Ted Cruz, we're trying to give them the boot. So if they're not there to serve us, then they're there to serve themselves, which we have seen how much money Ted Cruz makes. We have seen how much John Cornyn makes. We can also go back and see how much these congressmen and women make. And if they are public servants there to serve us, why are they leaving office millionaires?
Exactly. Why are they leaving office millionaires? I think we know why.
Well, you have to follow the money, and you will clearly see that just like Ted Cruz, my opponent has money invested in different areas. He gets money from possibly contracts, possibly Wall Street. All you have to do is go in there and follow the money and see where it's coming from. But to use that position to benefit yourself and then throwing us under the bus like he did with Dreamers, that's preposterous. That's not what someone in office should be doing, especially now running for another position of more power. That's irrational. Yes. To go and vote for someone who is clearly part of what we need in Congress, and not just in this position that I'm running in, but on all levels of government, is someone who has the ability to understand, that has lived through these experiences, that knows that there is a better way of living, that knows how to get things done in Congress. Now, like I've said before multiple times, I'm not a lawyer. I don't have a law degree, but that's not what is required, or it's not a prerequisite to run for office. It's not. What we can do, and in any position in Congress, just like Mr. O'Rourke and Mr. Ted Cruz they have a staff that they hire that create policy. They create legislation. So people ask me constantly, are you ready to run? I said, I've been running my whole life. I'm barely getting by just like everybody else. I'm ready to do what's right for the people. I'm not ready to do.
You are ready to run because you know what people need.
Well, yes, I am like anybody else. I'm a normal person who has struggled day to day, who knows what it's like to live as an immigrant, who knows what a worker. Really get by to get paid $12 an hour to work in an office, only to end up $37 short to pay the daycare bill. So I ended after working. I had nothing to take home.
Yes.
Nothing. And I don't think that any single person running for this position understands that kind of weight on someone's shoulders. That's a huge burden to carry. And I'm married, and my husband works. And, he gets laid off all the time because he works in the oil refineries. And that isn't steady job. That's not a steady job. It's not a healthy job. It's a job that, of course, we know causes a lot of the chemical exposures. It's a risk to our health. But even with him working, we afford everything that we need because he gets laid off. When he gets laid off, he's not working. He's back in the unemployment line. Yes. And we are having to save everything that he made in those few weeks or months and save it until he gets another job. Yes. And that is difficult. That is something that, like I said, O'Rourke and Cruz cannot relate to. They don't know what it's like. And having grown up in a single parent household, my mother had to work 3 to 4 jobs. When I was talking today to a friend of mine who is a small business owner in a mechanic shop, he said to me, I don't support the $15 minimum wage. And I said, well, I can bet you the mom that lives down the street who's working 3 to 4 jobs, one job that pays $15 an hour, full-time hours. That way she can only work one job and come home to her children. That way her children see her. And it can be the same thing with the dad down the other street who is trying to make ends meet. and
Yeah,
also would like just
personally,
one job.
I don't think $15 an hour is enough. It seems
No,
to
I don't
me
either.
it should be closer to 20. Okay, there's a candidate,
Well,
okay, in Georgia, who's running in the Athens area, and he's advocating for $20 an hour as a minimum wage.
we should
Okay,
tie it to inflation. Simple.
yes, I think he agrees with that too, but we should also, it seems to me, tie it to cost of living adjustments so that the
Yes.
minimum wage ought to depend, okay, on where you live because the cost of living is different, okay, in different areas.
Mm,
So, for example, in the middle of of New York City, it would be a lot higher than in the middle of Kansas, for example. Okay.
right. I agree. That would be because of the cost of living in different areas.
Yes. Uh, okay, but let's skip away from healthcare now and go to tuition-free college for all. Could you say a few words on that?
Mm. Well, just like healthcare, the more healthy you are, the better you are at what you're doing. Same thing with education. The more educated you are, the better you can create a society that can be productive as well. And what I would like to push for is the concept of renewable energy. You know, teaching children at a very young age what it about science, engineering, mathematics, to help them understand and use their all of their brain power to channel it into something that will be productive for the future. Now, it could be renewable energy for them. It could be something in science. It could be totally something different into arts and reading, writing. It would be up to them. But I support college for all with no strings attached. Nothing like you have to join the military to get free college education. That's not something that I would push. But I do believe that college for all is something that needs to be pushed, not from elementary school all the way through high school. And just like we did for high school wasn't part of the curriculum. It was only up to a certain point, and then that was that you were on your own. In Mexico, it's that way as well, where you only go up to possibly maybe fifth, sixth grade, and then the rest you pay for it, but now it becomes part of your career.
Oh,
I would like to see, yeah, it's expensive. That's why it's very, very hard for a lot of people to get their degree because they have to work and pay for the college. But I would like to see my children go to college and not have to worry about massive debt.
yes, so would
That's not
I.
something that I want for them.
Yes, I understand that, but also it's very important, simply from a national point of view, wanting to have people, okay, who are educated citizens of the United States and who are also capable of keeping the economy competitive, okay, in international trade. I mean, I think this uh, to a large degree is a patriotism issue. Other nations are providing routinely for free education, in many cases up through graduate school, okay, and
Yeah.
also through the professional schools. And that is entirely free in those nations. And not only that, in those nations, there often are support stipends for the students. Okay, that's done, I think, in Denmark. Okay, and also, if I'm not mistaken, in the Netherlands, uh, and I think in a number of other European nations. And of course, the question is, why can't we have that here as well for
Well,
our
I think
youth?
one of the reasons is because once we figure out that we are much smarter than the current politicians, we will definitely overthrow them. The more educated we are, the more empowered we are as a voter, as a citizen, the more we can outmaneuver, outsmart, and think of these genius, wonderful ideas that will impact our lives for years to come. Now, people like Ted Cruz and Beto O'Rourke, they both support charter schools. They both
Yes,
support
of course.
privatization of schools.
Of
And
course.
that's not something that I can sit there and say I support all the way. I don't. I
Yeah.
want
So
our public schools to
really,
be fully funded.
when you get right down to it, they're not very patriotic people, are they? In
In
other
different
words,
ways, they are. They claim to be in different ways. Yes.
yes, they may claim to be, but when it comes to building up the backbone of the country in terms of the citizenry, they're not very patriotic about that
No.
because they don't want to
No.
spend any money on it.
Yeah, and that's the thing is they also value money over anything else. And that's what I'm finding in this race is in order for me to be considered a qualified candidate, I have to raise an X amount of money, which is about $250,000. If not, I'm not a viable candidate. What they don't understand is to be considered a qualified three things, which is being over the age of 30, a United States citizen, and living in the state that you're running in for about maybe 8 years. Now, when it comes to being patriotic and things like that, we need to understand the process that it takes to get elected, to do all of these things, but also know that we have the ability to pass these laws, to create legislation that would allow health care, that would allow college for all. That way we can have a more educated society. That way we can feel comfortable knowing that the next generation will be able to defend themselves against the oligarchs and the patriarchal system that has been set in place for multiple centuries.
Yes.
And that's something that I want because I want future generations to know from our history that has been constantly whitewashed, to know the facts, to know the truth, and know how to rise up, know how
Yes.
to fight back, and know the signs before it gets to the point where we have another Trump presidency.
Yes. Okay. And I'm sure that is why the people you mentioned are not in favor of free college for all because
Correct.
they don't want that to happen. They
They
don't
don't.
want a strong and aware citizenry. And that's
Correct.
because they're not really patriotic, are they? Anyway, all right,
It
a
seems
leading
as a little
question.
bit elitist.
Yes, a little bit of a elitist. Okay. But I actually think questioning their patriotism is actually legitimate.
Hmm.
They question ours all the time.
Most definitely. When
So
they
maybe we
give
ought to
us,
give them back what we get from them.
well, and here's the thing is we have every right to question not just their loyalty to us as a people that they're representing and allocating our taxpayer dollars that belong to us in ways that are inappropriate, that lead us into more turmoil and war in different countries.
Well, we'll
We
get to
have every
the
right to do
issue
that.
of the taxpayer dollars, but paying for things sometime later. But whether that's what's going to pay for things or not, okay, and we believe, okay,
Mm-hmm.
it's not. Uh, okay, the dollars that are used to pay for things are U.S. dollars. They are our sovereign money, and they belong to the
They're not
nation.
backed by gold.
They're not
They're no
backed by
longer backed by
gold,
gold.
and they belong to the nation and to its
Mm-hmm.
people, and not to a small elite group,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so immigration reform. I noticed you have some really good ideas on that.
Ooh. Wow. Okay, I do. Well, I am of course a daughter of immigrants. My parents got to this country in the 1980s. I was born here in Houston, so the majority of what I know comes from firsthand experience of watching my parents struggle and knowing what it was like to be detained, not detained, but um, for ICE and Border Patrol to take apart our vehicle just because of what we looked like or because of how we, our culture and our language. My first language is actually Spanish. That is my
Sure,
first native tongue.
sure.
And of course, I speak English as well because I learned it in school. Um, Knowing and seeing what's going on, especially with my friends that have DACA with my, some of my relatives are still undocumented, so they still do live in the shadows, and I'm not one who's going to go out there and say who my family and relatives are. And they're from all different, sides of my family sometimes. And we have, people in our neighborhood that are undocumented, and they are afraid during the time of Senate Bill 4 here in Texas, various cities, and it would give authority to the police officers to pull us over and ask for our documentations. Not that they wanted to, but they were forced to do it. If they didn't want to do it, they were forced to do it. And if they did not do it or comply with that law, they themselves would lose their job or go to jail. Now, when it comes to dreamers, TPS, green card holders, people here on student visas, especially when it comes to dreamers and DACA, there should be a pathway to citizenship. There should have been a pathway to citizenship years ago. Something that didn't take so long, that didn't take so much money. As it is right now, dreamers contribute a lot to the economy, not just in not just in dollars and cents, but also in the job creations that they have, their degrees that they have, how productive they are in the society. As a daughter of immigrants, I know firsthand that, we are the backbone of this country, just like many Americans are the backbone of the country. The immigrants and the slaves that were brought here against their will are what built this country. And to turn around and say, we don't want you here, go back to your country, that they're all terrorists and rapists. I've seen that firsthand of people saying that in the city that I live in. And then they were quoting the Bible to just make it more blasphemous.
Oh, yeah.
They were quoting the Bible during their time at City Hall speaking about it. And I was, disgusted that they don't know the facts of the story of Jesus Christ. They don't know the facts that he was also an immigrant in the country that he was in. And to quote it, sit there and then praise Donald Trump for saying the things that he says, that to me is preposterous. I want a pathway to citizenship for everyone, not just dreamers, DACA, TPS, but people that have been living here for years, that have been contributing to society and living in the shadows and not being counted. That's what I want.
So if I can comment, so do I. But with respect to DACA, what I'd like to see is just a declaration from Congress declaring DACA people as full citizens of the United States. Period. End of story. No pathway to citizenship. They were brought up here. They are Americans. Mm-hmm. And we need to recognize them as such.
Most definitely. And I'm not sure if you saw on the platform as well that I wanted to include expanding voting rights to every single taxpayer.
Yes, I did see that. I thought that was excellent.
Well, if they're in this country and they're contributing into this country, into the economy, society, and every aspect of it, then why not give them the right to vote? They've earned it.
I agree.
They certainly have earned it.
I agree. They've earned it. And they should have it. Okay. And in many ways, they're much more capable, of voting intelligently than a lot of the people who simply fell into that right.
I would like to see automatic voter registration as well. That's what I would want to see as well. And so I would also like people to go and vote. Go vote in every election. Use that. Empower yourself. Don't think that just because you voted one time and it didn't go your way that it's going to stop. That's why we need to continue to vote.
Right.
That's what we need, and that's what I need.
Okay, and I think that your position here is distinct from Beto's, right?
Most definitely. I think that from what I've seen him at the virtual town halls that I've peeked into, because I don't watch him all the time, he gives platitudes, just a platitude, and tiptoes around the issue, and that's it. I have actually spoken with the college student. And he said to me, "You took my call. You gave me your phone number. I emailed you the legislation I've been working on to help people like my parents that are undocumented. And because of that, I have the privilege of voting. I'm going to vote for you because Bethel wouldn't even take my call." And I said, "Well, if it was just as simple as taking your call, great, but I want to know what you have to say one-on-one." And what people will find with me is that you don't have to pay millions of dollars, hundreds of dollars to have a one-on-one conversation with me. Yesterday, I was at Sci-Fair College. I was there for 2 hours. And I talked to each student who wanted to come and talk with me, whether if it was 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 30 minutes. I was there to hear what they had to say, to answer their questions on immigration, the border wall, gun control, college, talking about what else is it? Universal health care. And what kept coming up was immigration and gun laws. That's what kept coming up yesterday, including the border wall multiple times, because the students would come in one at a time. They wouldn't all come in a huge crowd. So even though I just explained my response 10 minutes ago to another student, I would do it again and do it again until they had their questions answered. And it wasn't just one question, it was multiple questions.
Okay, great. So let's move on. You want to protect the LGBTQ community?
Yes, I do. I most certainly do. And and I say this because I have seen my friends and my family struggle through life, not knowing if they're going to be accepted, not knowing if they're going to get fired from their job, not knowing if they can get married in the state that they live in, and they have to go to a different state to get married. That's not something you should do in the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Uh-oh.
That's
Yeah.
that's not something that you should fear, of being yourself and loving who you love, and fear getting turned away or not getting covered with health insurance or life insurance, or not being allowed to openly express your love for someone without getting a look or getting arrested, or it's too many injustices already. And the times that we're in, we don't need that anymore. We don't need to prosecute or persecute someone because of who they are. Now, I have the LGBT community since before I knew there was an LGBT community. I think I was maybe 12, 13 years old when one of my friends said, "I don't think you're going to be my friend anymore once I tell you I'm a lesbian." And I looked at her and I said, "I'm pretty sure that that's okay." And it doesn't bother me. It does not bother me at all. But she was getting bullied and harassed by other students. So when she told me that and I realized what was going on, I'm like, y'all need to leave her alone or you're going to have me to deal with. And I don't mess around. I seriously was there for her and stuck up for her, not just for her, but for other classmates. And, for my aunt, she is also LGBT. My brother-in-law, I love him so much. He is also LGBT. And I do my choice. I don't know what their future holds, but I also want the future for them where they can be who they are without being fearful of being attacked or mistreated, or having some sort of hate towards them because of who they love.
Yeah, so do I. So do I. You're also for reproductive justice.
Oh, yes. So when we talk about reproductive justice, we also want to be sure that we inform not just parents, but children of their anatomy and physiology. We want to make sure that they know their rights to their body, that they can get access to birth control, healthcare, reproductive education in schools, that women can have access to the healthcare that they need, healthcare services if they need it, or that's able to get without any what's the word I'm looking for? Without, there's a word I can't think of, without any stigma around it, because we know that there's a lot of pro-life groups out there that will picket and that they will protest outside of areas like Planned Parenthood.
Well, yes, they're
And I
extremely
certainly,
coercive.
yeah, yes. And I myself also want to lower the infant mortality rate and the maternal mortality rate. It's very saddening that it affects women of color and mostly the African American community, where they do not get equal opportunities to have prenatal health care, prenatal health screenings. And we need to make sure that we as women are able to have that and to be getting prenatal care early. And for men to also, if they want a vasectomy, by all means, do it.
Right.
And getting those health care
But
screenings.
this is tied into the Medicare for All bill, because
It
that kind
is.
of
But
care would be a part of the Medicare for All bill.
yes, but not a lot of people know that, and we need to make sure that women are aware of that and keep pushing for it and keep telling Beto O'Rourke that this is included in HR 676.
Yes,
He's
and
that
so maybe you
supports.
have to say that tomorrow night. Okay, that may
I
be
would have
one
to
of the
say that
many
tomorrow night.
things.
He may not be
That you
there,
have to say. Yeah.
but people will know, and people will make an informed choice afterwards.
Okay, so
Women,
maybe
we
you can
want to
set
make
up
sure that we are
an
taken care
empty
of.
chair there. Okay, in other words, the two of you can set up an empty chair there, and you can both talk to the empty chair based on the platform on his website.
Well, we've thought about that.
Then let's see how he likes that.
We have thought about doing that, of pulling a Clint Eastwood move, doing a silhouette cover or cutout of him. That would certainly get a lot of people's attention.
Yes, I'm sure you do a much
But
better
yeah,
job than
reproductive
Clint
justice, Dan.
Eastwood did.
Clint, when he pulled that was pretty funny. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
something
that
that
was
we have thought about doing. But I am debating Edward Kimbrough, and we'll see if people feel comfortable with that or they would think it's kind of childish doing it. I think it's hilarious. Honestly, we all have a sense of humor. Why not?
sure. Okay, you want to lower the cost of living. How would you do that? That seems like a very difficult thing to do. Okay,
Well,
especially at the same time as you're raising the minimum wage.
well, it may be difficult to do, but I think if we can put it into a tax reform bill, that would be great. Removing the incentives for real estate development companies going into our neighborhoods and gentrifying our neighborhoods, raising the cost of living in those areas. That's one way to do it. As far
Well,
as lowering the cost,
why
yeah.
not have the government actually build affordable housing?
Oh,
The
we can
federal
do that as
government.
well. We can, of course, federal government. With the federal government, well, let's hope they do the right thing, and that's what we need. We need people such as myself and other candidates to get elected. So I have
Yes,
even proposed,
to make sure the federal government does the right thing,
right,
okay, and
and I have
provides
even,
affordable homes
yes,
for all
affordable homes, and
Americans.
yeah, that way nobody is homeless. That's perfect. I have
Exactly.
also proposed that we give incentives to real estate development companies that will go in and renovate buildings, making it affordable for people to go back and live in there. We have so many empty skyscrapers here in the city of Houston that would be beneficial to renovate them, to have people living in there in a condominium, in an apartment home, townhome, whatever the case is, that would be rent controlled, that would help communities instead of raising the taxes, raising the cost of living, and making it virtually unlivable for regular people living on a minimum wage, which is why I also say raising the minimum wage. And there's
Yes.
something else on there on the platform that also includes universal basic income. And that's something that a lot of people don't know about. It's still fairly new in this election cycle. And a lot of people do support it. A lot of people had no idea what it was until I informed them of what it was. And
Okay, well, we here.
About to close?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're closed already. Yeah, we're closed at 9.
Oh, you close at 9? I thought you closed at 9:30.
No, we're closed at 9. The library made an announcement. That's why.
Really? Okay, I'll be right out.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. Okay, so I guess we're closing. Yeah, the library is open here until 9:30. I'm here at one of the college
So you are using the library, I see. So you have to get out, okay, in just a few minutes. Okay, well, let's get to basic income. Okay.
Universal basic income is the idea, the notion of people having a guaranteed income unconditionally, and it would be ideal at about $1,100 to $1,200 a month that someone can use however they please. And studies have shown that providing universal basic income into people's bank accounts on a monthly basis, that their financial situation is actually better off than before. Their life expectancy is better. Their health is better. Their lifestyle in general, the standard of living is much higher.
Okay. Well, generally speaking, okay, we do not favor that. Okay, a universal basic income. What we favor is a combination of a job guarantee program offered by the federal government with jobs defined by actually defined by local people and also communities, combined with a basic income for people who are disabled and also cannot fit into a social value sector that would be created by the job guarantee. And the way we would handle it is to have the job guarantee program carry a fair wage, okay, of $18 to $20 an hour, cost adjusted, across the country, and we would peg the basic income for people who can't fit into one of the sectors, the private sector or the government sector, okay, or the social value sector. We would peg that basic income at 2/3 of the level of the job guarantee wage. Okay, and the reason why we're in favor of a job guarantee wage is some of the economic estimates that we come to with respect to how many people still do not have full-time jobs, okay, that they want, is that there are still 24 million people out there. It's not 6 million, which comes from the U3 statistic, okay, and it's not the 11 million that comes from the U6 statistic. But we can estimate what the labor participation ratio would be if we had a healthy economy, and that would be roughly 0.67. But in our economy today, we only have 0.63 or so. So the other 4%, okay, it turns out, okay, it amounts to 11 million people. So we're talking 22, 23, maybe 24 million people still out there not covered in our economy because it's a stagnant economy.
Yeah.
And so with the job guarantee program, what we can do is we can place people in a living wage job that sets the minimum for the rest of the economy, so that if, say, Walmart wants to have any workers, it's going to have to offer more than the $20 an hour, you see. And that goes, okay, for every other business also. That's a de facto minimum wage. Okay, and it's above the minimum wage, okay, that you are thinking of right now. And it would be cost adjusted, okay, across the country.
Yeah.
And for those who are in need, who can't fill any jobs at all, for any reason at all, including psychological reasons,
I gotta
there
go.
is the basic income. Okay.
I definitely gotta go.
Okay, if you want to talk to me about this offline,
Yep.
We can talk by Skype, okay, or something like that. Okay, I'll be happy to fill you in, okay, on all of
Yep.
this. And on also some of the pay-for issues, which we never got
I gotta
to
go
today.
because they're about to get me out. And I know this is a live interview, but I gotta go.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Yes, sir. Bye.
Bye. Okay, hello. I'm still here. And of course, we were just getting to the good part. Okay, I didn't realize that she was limited to roughly an hour. And then, of course, we had 10 minutes at the beginning, okay, before we got going. But if you have any questions, and Tricia asks whether Sema is agreeing. Yes, I'd say she is, because the next item on her agenda was, as your senator, I work to strengthen the EPA and pass legislation that promotes the transition from fossil fuels to clean, renewable energy sources. It is common knowledge that fossil fuel production and use cause extreme damage to our planet. Little has been done to prevent oil companies from polluting the environment. We must hold the fossil fuel industry accountable for the damage they have already caused and demand investment in alternative energy sources. In a country as large as the United States, we have plenty of available space that can be used to install solar panels and wind farms. Okay, and that's the wording of her plank. And okay, so of course, I didn't have a chance to really give her the full education, okay, on the UBI, but I thought I detected real interest in the job guarantee combined with the basic income, and I hope she'll get back with me shortly, okay, in order to discuss this in more detail, because I'll tell you that job guarantee would be a wonderful differentiating factor for her in relation to Beto O'Rourke. And so, by the way, I wonder where he got by that name. Does he bet? I mean, is he a bettor? Is he a gambler? And where does that name come from? Anyway, whatever. Okay, other questions? Russell said, Joe, please chime in on the UBI thing. Well, Russell, you knew I was going to do that, didn't you? Sema, a standalone UBI is inflationary, whereas a federal job guarantee is not. Okay, so everybody go to her page. Okay? Yeah, she is amazing, and she has great aspirations and also big dreams, and she's a great person, and she needs our help. Okay, so everybody go to her page on Facebook and to her website for the campaign, which is at www.semafortexas.us. Okay, that's her website. And leave your views on the combined job guarantee BI program. Also, by the way, when she says she's in favor of a job guarantee program, when she says she's in favor of a basic income program, it's not really a universal basic income, because she wants to set a maximum personal income threshold, which would prevent the abuses of the system that can otherwise take place. So she's evidently not forgiving the children of Donald Trump a basic income. So it's a universal income up to a certain point, but not actually past that point. Okay? So other items in her program are criminal justice and police reform. And of course, she has such things as any officer suspected of targeting racial minorities or committing police brutality must be terminated immediately with no exceptions. The most important issue, however, is combating police brutality and targeting, of African Americans. Police violence has increased each year, and if we do not push for reform, nothing will change. She wants to abolish the private prisons. She wants to reform the court system because too many people are locked up because they don't have the ability to pay exorbitant court costs, and legal fees. She wants to decriminalize marijuana in all 50 states and U.S. territories. She wants to end the wars and stop arming terrorists. She wants to have tax reform, and by that she means she wants to raise taxes on corporations and implement higher tax rates on the top 1%. I will work to close tax loopholes and ensure that the rich are paying their fair share. She wants to reform also NAFTA to mutually benefit all countries involved. In its current form, NAFTA has resulted in a loss of American jobs and stagnated or reduced wages. If NAFTA is to remain in effect, it must be rewritten to promote manufacturing within the United States rather than outsourcing. But in being for that, she does not mention that NAFTA has not gone well for Mexican farmers as well. There are millions of people have been thrown off the land by NAFTA. And social chaos has been created in the rural areas, of Mexico. So NAFTA hasn't been good for Mexico either, on the whole. A lot of the reason why people have come here to find jobs is because they couldn't earn a living in their local areas any longer. They had to come here because there was nothing for them to do. There were no jobs, and there was no choice. She wants to end eminent domain. It's used by the U.S. government as an excuse to underpay property owners for their land. If the U.S. government requires land that is privately owned, full market value should be paid to the property owner. Now, that's something, that I agree with. We certainly know the federal government can afford it. Also, by the way, even though that's very important, civil asset forfeiture is very important also. I don't see any mention of that in her platform here. She wants to restore Native American rights to their land and to honor the treaties with them. And I suspect so do we all. And the final item on her platform is net neutrality. She says, as your senator, I will work to limit corporate interference with internet access. Access to the internet should be available to all Americans at little or no cost. Internet packages cannot restrict access to websites or services. I assume what she means is that it should not be allowed, the internet packages should not be allowed to restrict access to websites or services. And she perhaps should have added that also the providers should not be allowed to use algorithms to repress the statistics, the actual statistics due to sharing and to actual viewership, okay, of the programs involved. Okay, any more questions? And Mark Fabian says, Sema, I hope you see this and will read it. And he makes reference to the Open Democracy article, okay, that just appeared. The article entitled, Universal Basic Income is a Neoliberal Plot to Make You Poorer. Of course, I share that opinion as well, which is why I think that most of us around here by now favor a job guarantee coupled with a basic income for those who cannot fit into the work world. And Teresa Sanders says she seems really great and smart. I agree. I think that she's smart, and she's for us, and she is one of ours, and that we should do our damnedest to get her elected. Not only in relation to Cruz, but the first step should be for her to win the primary. So it's Beto who has got to go. And that's going to be hard because the primary is on March the 6th. Which is what? Only 2 weeks away. Rosemary Robinson says, you better tell her offline. She's got to get out of there. Yeah, you're right. So we've been trying to tell her by continuing the broadcast, and I'll also communicate with her offline and see if she wants to learn anything else about this. She has got only 2 weeks to run, and she may feel time is short, and that she can't make any changes to her platform now in any case. But I have a feeling about her that she's adaptive, and she doesn't feel constrained by the usual conventions, okay, of politics. And if she finds something else now that she's for and that can fuel her campaign, she's going to pick it up. And maybe a job guarantee can do that. And Mark Fabian says, a living wage, that a UBI isn't a living wage handout. It is only an adjunct plan for less than a minimum wage and an excuse to eliminate social services. Well, it may not be an excuse to eliminate social services for some of the people who are proposing a basic income, but I think it's quite clear that it would be used by the right wing as an excuse to eliminate social services because, oh, they don't need the social services. They're already getting the basic income anyway, and it's costing us so much, and because it's costing us so much, and the debt, we got to cut it, right? Now, that's the kind of thing that's going to come about if the basic income is passed in the wrong context. Casey Callahan says, not quite, Rosemary, a job guarantee plus a basic income, not a UBI. UBI is death on a stick, and not a very big stick either. So, Sema needs to find out about the job guarantee. Yes, she does need to find out about the job guarantee. How come we didn't learn earlier that she did not know about the job guarantee? UBI. Everybody's asking the same thing. UBI. Not UBI, Sema. And Russell says she's given a lot of thought to what she's been doing. Was she a poli-sci major? I don't know, but I was a poli-sci major. I'm a poli-sci PhD. Old white men should not be making the reproductive decisions for women. I couldn't agree more. And I'm an old white man, but I couldn't agree more. I mean, those reproductive decisions ain't my business. Yeah, Sema is a CFAR candidate. I've seen it in print at the CFAR site. She is a CFAR candidate. So she'll be supporting most of CFAR. Okay, what do we got? And Rosemary Robbins says, okay, take the universal off. I still agree with Joe. Yeah, one of the major reasons for taking the universal off and combining it with the job guarantee, Rosemary, is because it has been shown through economic simulations that a UBI by itself, and the more generous it is, the more likely this is to happen. A UBI by itself will be inflationary. Prices will adjust. And in just a few years, we'll be in roughly the same position that we are now. People will roughly be in the same position, okay, as they are now. And in the meantime, okay, the UBI just becomes a subsidy for Walmart, a further public subsidy for Walmart and for other businesses that are unwilling to pay their workers a living wage. The job guarantee stops all that by offering a public option to get a living wage, working on a project that produces social value. People can get both job satisfaction and a wage twice as high as they get at Walmart. And by the way, $1,000 to $1,200 a month for a UBI, okay, or something like $12,000 a year, or even $14,000 a year, doesn't compare to the 25 or 26,000 they would get if they were getting $20 an hour for a living wage. But 2,080 hours, but times $20 an hour, that's something like what is it, $42,000 a year, something like that. That's a much better deal for people. And they get to do something productive for the economy, which isn't something guaranteed when there's a UBI. That's not guaranteed. I'm not saying people on a UBI will not be productive in some way and contribute to the economy. There are many of them who will be. But it's not something built into the program, whereas that is what is built into the JG program. Okay, I think it's going to be time for me to get off here, okay, in a little while, but I will take a couple more questions or comments. Okay, Rosemary says, a basic income backup for those who cannot work for whatever reason. Yes, that's what I've been saying. You know, there are many people who cannot work because they're genuinely disabled. Okay, and so they would be due a basic income, okay, of that kind. And there are other people who cannot fit in to a job environment, okay, for whatever reason. Okay, the position I take is that we are not here to judge them. They still have a right to subsistence. And so I still favor a BI for them. In other words, in a sense, I consider them as disabled people, even if they may not be physically disabled. They are, in a sense, socially disabled. Rosemary is still putting the U before the BI. No, I don't think she is. I think she understands what I said, is that the BI is due only to people who can't fit into the other sectors. And we might even add an income criterion, because, of course, there are some people in the economy who are coupon clippers and who get so much from the coupons, as it were, that they make a very nice living from the coupons. If that's the case, then they would not be due a BI either. I would actually put in a basic criterion that if their income from coupons plus any potential income from the BI program would give them an income that was greater than the job guarantee income, then I would say they would not be entitled to a basic income. Okay, so any more comments? Any more comments? Okay, so after the technical difficulties, which actually clearly I now understand why the technical difficulties were there, because Sema was live streaming from a library. And it wasn't her computer, so there were technical difficulties that were coming out of that end. Susan Beaver says, okay, that Beto is a neoliberal. Yeah, I've been to his site. I know he's a neoliberal. Absolutely. And Brian Guyen says, what separates you from Beto O'Rourke? In other words, how am I different? Okay, from Beto O'Rourke, I'm different from Beto O'Rourke because I am not a neoliberal. If you watched the program and you saw all the items in Sema's platform that I agree with, or would even go one better than she goes, you would know how I am different from Beto O'Rourke. I am politically very different, okay, from Beto O'Rourke. I would vote for him under no conditions. He's a Hillary bot. And Russell says, Joe, I got to go. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Enjoy the rest of yours too, Russell. Take care. She fights to be heard all around Texas on floors of dem events, uninvited and ousted out. Not only that you don't actually follow what people are doing, you come and complain and condescend before you blame. There are Twitter and Phoebe, do some work before. We all know research that you can find yourself useful on the ground in Texas. Thank you. This was directed at Chaz Del Camp from Zohar Attai. So Chaz, I guess, is a Beto partisan. Chaz, you make it sound like you can't change your opinion or change your strategy. Nothing is set in stone. That's the difference between your typical candidate and Sema. She is open-minded and listens to people's opinion, but you are making assumptions and judging her character based on this a small amount of information. Carrie says, Joe, will the JG be separate from the military so that nobody feels pressure to join? Yes, it will be separate from the military so people don't feel any pressure to join. In fact, the JG will be wholly voluntary. It's always been proposed as completely voluntary. And for people who have just gotten sacked, okay, and are in a job that carries a much higher wage than the JG job, and who want to stay, okay, on unemployment insurance while they try to find another job doing something similar to what they did at a similar or higher salary, they'd be completely free to do it under the JG. Okay, the JG is designed not to replace any other programs, but just to supplement them and give people the freedom to get a JG job if they want one. Chasdale Camp says, do you all know what attorneys do? They take simple-minded people, not their fault, but they manipulate when people lack confidence. And from listening to her, no. She is so shaky to make the change we need in Texas. Well, guess what, Chaz? She's going to be a U.S. senator. So she's going to be representing Texas, but she won't be directly making the changes in Texas, except through making changes for the whole country. And she's got a pretty good sense of what is needed for the whole country. And also, I don't think she's going to be so easily manipulated because she has a sense of what she wants. She has a sense of what's in accord with public purpose, okay, and what is not. Casey Callahan says, no more Hillbots. Indeed, Casey, no more Hillbots. That's the last thing we want. We don't want to vote for any more Hillbots or any more Hillarys either. Okay, so it's 10:37. And I don't want this to run too long tonight, but I do want to say a few things. One is that I greatly appreciate it if you would please visit my Patreon account from time to time, and consider making a contribution of some sort so I can continue this work. Please also visit the Real Progressives the Patreon account. For the purposes of facilitating our collective work. Okay, and also what I wanted to say is that I have a live stream again on Thursday night. I'll be interviewing Tony Puka, who's running for the House of Delegates up in Maryland. And then on Saturday night, I'll be interviewing Lisa Ring, who is a candidate for Congress in Georgia. And she appears to be a very progressive candidate. And I think that Tony Puka is also a progressive candidate, okay, as well. Okay, Lisa Ring is, I think, a fairly polished candidate and has some good ideas. And I think she has a good deal of experience in various fields, and it should be an interesting conversation with her. Also, Lisa Ring is another CFAR candidate, and so I'm happy to talk to her as well. So that's what's going to be going on Thursday and Saturday. On Thursday at 9 p.m., of course, in my regular Thursday night time slot. And on Saturday, okay, at 8 o'clock, okay, for Lisa. So those are my regular slots. I made an exception tonight because I wanted to get to Sema before the primary. Okay, I thought I could help her a little bit, and I hope I have. So anyway, thank you very much for coming. And thank you very much for your comments. And thank you very much for the reactions. And I'll see you again, I hope, on Thursday night and on Saturday night. Okay, you'll find a button to my Patreon account, by the way, at my website, www.josephmfirestone.com. And don't forget to look at the various books there and the blogs as well. So thank you again, and good night, everyone.